Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the English podcast with Maqsood Azeemi, which was held on October 31st, 2025. Today we're doing a really deep dive. We're getting into some foundational concepts from a really profound discussion Dr. Satib led recently. We're talking about spiritual development, certainty, how the mind works, the soul. You know, the big questions, our goal here isn't just to repeat what was said, but to really unpack it, explore the insights, and see how they connect. Maybe find some actionable wisdom for all of us listening. But before we jump into the mind and spirit, we really need to touch on something physical, something immediate, especially for our listeners in Pakistan. As you know, nowadays, Lahore in particular is facing a severe smog situation. It's quite serious. So please, everyone, take precautions. Try to only go outside if it's absolutely necessary. If you do have to go out, please wear a mask. And stay hydrated, drink more water, maybe have some soup. That can help too. It's important to look after yourselves and each other. May Allah protect us all. Amen. Okay, so back to the discussion.
I'm really excited about this one because it feels like it gets right to the heart of why we think the way we do, maybe why we feel stuck sometimes. Dr. Sahib really laid out a map of our inner workings.
Absolutely. It's definitely foundational. What really struck me was how Dr. Sahib dissected the way our reality or sort of mental landscape is constructed. It's not always our own doing, is it? He talks about conditioning, environmental influence. There are quite a few aha moments in there, I think, particularly around how society kind of builds our worldview for us. And his starting point, these two types of training, that's a perfect place for us to begin, I feel.
Right, let's unpack that. So Dr. Sahib introduces this idea. Conscious training, shurpi tarbiyat, and unconscious training, lashuri tarbiyat. Conscious training, he says, is, well, it's what everyone does. It's the obvious stuff. Parents teaching kids, teachers in school, society's rules and expectations. That's the framework we're handed.
The sort of operating manual we get from the outside world.
Exactly.
But then there's the unconscious training. And Dr. Sahib points out this is different. This is the domain of a spiritual elder, a teacher, a spiritual guide. And crucially, their role isn't about, bulldozing the conscious mind that society built. It's more subtle. Dr. Sahib used the term hum ahung harmony. The aim is to bring the conscious mind into harmony with the unconscious.
Okay, harmony, not destruction. That's key.
Yeah.
Because society often seems to do the opposite, right? Dr. Sieb really critiqued that. He said, society actively teaches us to ignore our Lashuri Tariqat, those unconscious impulses, the gut feelings, the deeper currents. Instead, we're pushed to follow our personal whims, our conscious desires, the mindsets we've already formed or been given.
Yeah, it's like we're trained away from our own deeper intuition. Society prefers predictability, the known quantity. And this leads to that incredibly powerful statement Dr. Sahib highlighted, quoting his own Murshid, Khawaja Shamsuddin Azeemi. He apparently repeated it in two key books, the preface to Ruhani Ilaj and in Kalandar Shoer. The quote is, "The society in which a person grows up becomes his creed."
Wow. Just let that sink in. Becomes his creed. So our core beliefs, our fundamental akida, isn't necessarily something we consciously choose through deep reflection. It's more like it's absorbed, inherited from the environment.
Precisely. And if society is your creed, then genuine independent thought, thinking outside that established box, becomes incredibly difficult, maybe even threatening to the status quo. Dr. Sahib mentioned how society often issues judgments, fatwas in a sense, against those who deviate, who challenge that inherent structure. It's a defense mechanism.
So the spiritual guide's work, then, is almost countercultural in that sense.
You could say that. The Murshid works specifically to neutralize or maybe refine that conscious framework, that sancha e-fikr, or the template of thought that society has built. It's about replacing that external conditioning with an alignment to the internal, the unconscious impulses.
And Dr. Sieve used that word polish, didn't he?
Yes, exactly. Polish, not destroy. He said the goal is to polish the conscious mind, like removing the dulmidi, the dust and dirt, so the unconscious can actually shine through, can talk okay. Because ultimately, the conscious mind, as we experience it day to day, is temporary, it's fani. The unconscious, that's deeper. That's where we connect when we sleep. It's closer to our enduring self.
That makes a lot of sense. Polishing the lens so the light can come through. Okay, so if the unconscious holds this deeper truth, and the conscious mind needs polishing, how do we actually access that truth with conviction? This leads us to the next major point, certainty, or yaqeen. Dr. Sahib talked about the gate of doubt, shakka gate. How do we close that gate? Is it just willpower?
Well, Dr. Sahib did say it's fundamentally an act of will, of irada. You have to actively decide to close that gate of uncertainty, of doubt. Spiritual help, the guidance of the Murshid, can definitely reinforce that intention, strengthen that resolve. But the initial step, the turning of the key, so to speak, has to come from your own will.
Okay, so it starts with a choice. But what is this certainty, this yaqeen? Why is it framed as so incredibly powerful?
Because, according to Dr. Sahib's explanation, yaqeen is literally the power that manifests things. It's the force that takes our thoughts, our khayalat, and turns them into concrete, material reality, makes them a mazhar. And conversely, doubt, the yaqini, is what stops that process cold. It's the blockage.
It's the manifestation engine, then.
In a way, yes. Think about it simply. If you are absolutely certain you can achieve something, you act accordingly, you pour energy into it. If you're riddled with doubt about your ability, you hesitate, you hold back, you might not even try. You manifest the failure you were uncertain about.
Right. And Dr. Siddiq got quite specific about how doubt actually enters our system, didn't he? He mentioned Kalandar Baba Olia describing 6 gates for every brain cell.
Yes, that was fascinating. Right, left, up, down, front, back. 6 potential entry points for information, for Itla. But the critical point was that doubt doesn't come in with the raw information itself. It enters as the meaning, the interpretation we attach to that information, often a negative meaning.
Could you give an example of that? How meaning creates doubt?
Well, the one Dr. Sahib used was very telling. He spoke about the Azeemi community finding the book Lau Kalam difficult to understand. He argued it wasn't necessarily the inherent complexity of the text itself. The difficulty arose from a preformed belief, a kind of negative certainty within the community. A belief like, we are not capable of understanding something written by or for such a great personality. It was a form of uncertainty about their own capacity, their own worthiness in that context.
Ah, so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy rooted in a negative interpretation of their own abilities relative to the source.
Yeah.
That's subtle but powerful.
Exactly. That belief, that negative meaning they applied, became the actual barrier to understanding. It closed the gate to comprehension, you could say.
That's essentially self-sabotage, fueled by negative certainty, or perhaps uncertainty about one's own potential. So, what's the fix? Dr. Sahib offered a very specific remedy.
He did, a very direct one, reciting in the Quranic verse, Inna Allaha ala kulli shayin qadir.
Indeed, Allah is over all things competent and powerful.
Precisely. And the logic behind it, as Dr. Sahib explained, is about repatterning the mind. By constantly repeating and internalizing this, you're fixing the mind's focus on the ultimate reality. That Allah is the Adiri Mutlaq, the absolute power, the all-competent. It establishes that the ultimate power to make things happen, to determine outcomes, rests with Allah, not with our limited, temporary, often doubt-filled selves or circumstances.
So it overwrites the doubt signal by focusing on the absolute source of power and competence. It directly confronts the negative meaning we might have applied.
Exactly. It reinforces certainty in the absolute, thereby closing those gates of personal uncertainty and perceived limitation. It's a powerful mental recalibration.
This idea of focusing the mind, of aligning with a higher power, transitions us neatly into the concepts of ishq of spiritual love and submission. How did Dr. Sahib define ishq in this context?
He described ishq primarily as a mental state, a state of intense focus, yaksoy. It's when the object of your love in the spiritual context, Allah, the divine, is constantly, almost automatically repeating in your mind. It becomes the central preoccupation, the default thought.
So it's not just emotion, it's a condition of continuous mental focus.
Yes, the emotion follows the focus, or perhaps they fuel each other, but the definition's centered on that unwavering mental presence.
And achieving that kind of focus seems to demand a certain letting go. This brings us to submission, particularly submission to the Murshid, Khwaja Maqsood Azeemi in this case. Dr. Sahib emphasized abandoning one's own marsi, one's personal will or desire, and adopting the Murshid's intention, their irada. That sounds quite challenging.
It is challenging, certainly. But Dr. Sahib offered a fascinating linguistic insight here to explain the wisdom behind it. He connected the word marsi
To miraz, illness, right?
Exactly. He pointed out that in Arabic, marzi, wild desire, shares a root with maraz, illness, sickness. The implication, as he explained it, is that constantly following your own limited, often ego-driven desires, especially when they go against the natural laws or divine guidance, essentially makes you spiritually sick. You become a maraz, a patient.
Following your own whims makes you ill. That's a stark way to put it.
It is. And the Murshid's path, therefore, is presented as the cure. By aligning your will with the guide's intention, which is presumed to be aligned with the divine will, you're choosing a path of spiritual health. Dr. Sahib suggested it's much easier, much more efficient than spending a lifetime trying to figure it all out yourself through flawed personal research and trial and error, constantly succumbing to spiritual illness.
It's like choosing the guidance of an expert physician instead of self-medicating based on cravings.
That's a very good analogy, yes.
This idea of alignment and commitment is formalized in the kalima, isn't it? La ilaha illa ali Muhammadur Rasul Allah. Dr. Sahib went into a really detailed analysis of this covenant.
He did, and he drew a distinction that often gets glossed over, I think. He talked about the difference between Ilah and Mabud.
Right. He said the pre-Islamic Arabs already knew Allah as Mabud, the one who was worshipped. They weren't atheists in that sense. They even named their children Abdullah, servant of Allah.
Correct. So the challenge, the revolution of the Kalima, wasn't just getting them to worship Allah, it was getting them to accept Allah as the only Ilah.
And Ilah means?
The one you are utterly dependent upon. The ultimate source, the fulfiller of all needs, the one whose authority you submit to above all others. It's a much deeper, more exclusive relationship than just worshipped one among potentially others.
So it's shifting from ritual worship to total reliance and exclusive authority.
Precisely. And the structure of the Kalima itself enforces this, according to Dr. Sahib's analysis. He was quite emphatic about this. He stated the Kalima is one single covenant, one integrated promise. It means, I will accept no ilah except Allah, and I will do so only in the specific way demonstrated and taught by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Okay, so the second part isn't separate. It's the how-to manual for the first part.
Exactly. It's the methodology. And this is where Dr. Sahib criticized the common translation practice of inserting the word and are in Urdu Arabic between La ilaha illa Allah and Muhammadur Rasul Allah.
He called that insertion a thought-out satanic trick. That's strong language. Why did he see it as so detrimental?
Because, he argued, inserting and conceptually breaks the covenant into two separate statements, it makes it sound like. 1, accept Allah as the only ilah, A-N-D. 2, accept Muhammad as his messenger. This separation, he felt, subtly distances us from the crucial understanding that the only way to truly fulfill the first part, accepting Allah's ilah, is through the methodology provided by the second part, following the Prophet's way. The and makes the application seem optional or secondary rather than integral.
I see. It weakens the binding nature of the Prophet's example as the sole legitimate path to enacting that dependence on Allah. That's a very nuanced point.
Extremely nuanced, but with profound implications for how one understands and lives their faith, according to his analysis.
Okay, so we've established the importance of certainty, submission, and the correct understanding of the covenant. Now, how do we apply this in practice? How do we move from a thought, a khayal, to reality? Dr. Sahib mentioned weighing the thought.
Yes, weighing the thought khayal kutulna. He stressed the importance of using logic and consultation before acting on every impulse or idea. Not every thought is worthy of becoming reality. We need to apply our God-given intellect, our reason, to assess whether a thought aligns with truth, with practicality, with divine guidance. Otherwise, we risk acting on flawed premises.
Like building on those faulty societal creeds we discussed earlier.
Exactly. And he used the example of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, to illustrate the power of logic in challenging ingrained but illogical beliefs.
That was a brilliant example. Ibrahim didn't just rely on miracles to disprove idol worship. He used sharp, circumstantial logic, breaking the smaller idols, placing the hammer on the big one, and then challenging the people. Ask him who did it, forcing them to confront the logical absurdity of their beliefs.
He made them use their own reasoning to admit the idols were powerless, couldn't act, couldn't even speak or defend themselves. It was a masterclass in using logic to dismantle a false akida.
And that ties into Dr. Sahib's derivation of the word akida itself, right? From A.
Yes, ag meaning a knot, a tie, jira. Our beliefs, our creed, are like mental knots we've tied or that society has tied for us. Dr. Sahib insisted we have a responsibility to revisit these knots, to examine them using logical assessment, using our intellect. We need to understand the spirit, the roof of a principle or a practice, not just perform it as a blind ritual, Rassam.
Ritual versus spirit. That's a crucial distinction. He gave the example of fasting, Rosa.
He did. He contrasted the ritual of fasting, which for some might just mean skipping lunch but then overeating massively at Sari before dawn and iftar at sunset, with the spirit of fasting.
And the spirit involves
Silence, reflection, reducing consumption to allow physiological changes like lower salt and sugar levels, which he linked to inducing states of Malukiyat, angelic, or higher consciousness states. If you're just focused on the food before and after, if you're not engaging in the reflection and the intended inner transformation, you're performing the ritual, but completely missing the spirit, the purpose.
You're going through the motions without reaping the benefit.
Precisely. And this failure to engage the intellect, to seek the spirit, is something the Quran itself warns against repeatedly. Dr. Sahib pointed out the sheer frequency, something like 1,100 times the Quran, urges reflection, contemplation, using our minds. Ghor, fikur, tafakkur, tadabbur, takwul.
Wow, 1,100 times. That's a clear message.
It's an undeniable command to think. And ignoring that command, Dr. Sahib suggested, quoting Surah Yasin, is tantamount to following Satan's misguidance, which essentially tells us not to think, just to follow blindly.
So, Allah gave us choice, ikhtiyar. The famous principle, la ikra fid din, no compulsion in religion.
Yes. And with that choice comes responsibility. The responsibility to use the intellect he gave us to make our own assessments, to seek the spirit, not just the form. And importantly, Dr. Sahib advised avoiding getting sucked into distracting, polluting arguments. He mentioned things like petty politics, which just waste mental energy and prevent us from focusing on genuine spiritual assessment and progress.
Keep the signal clear, avoid the noise. Makes sense.
Noise pollutes the mind, hinders clear, logical thought. And clear thought is essential for this journey.
Okay, this brings us to the final segment, and it's perhaps the most mind-bending concept Dr. Sahib explored. The nature of the soul and its journey through different zones of existence, changing its garment in each zone.
Yes. This definitely requires some deep contemplation. The idea that the soul, the ruh, wears a different libas, a different body or covering, appropriate to each realm it inhabits.
It's complex.
Yeah.
How did he contrast our current existence with these other zones?
He contrasts to our world, the alam nasut, the material world, where we are strictly bound by tartib zamani or makani sequence in time and space with other states. Think about experiences in Araf, the realm between paradise and hell, or even just in dreams. In those states, the subtle body, the jism-e misali, isn't bound by the same physical laws. It can traverse distances instantly, time flows differently.
So the garment changes to match the physics, the rules of that particular zone.
That's the core idea. The soul adapts its vehicle to the environment.
Dr. Sahib detailed quite a journey for the soul before it even reaches this material garment. He mentioned 9 stages.
Yes, 9 stages, described as passing through 8 different screens or garments before arriving in the 9th, which is our current physical body. He linked this to the Quranic mentions of 7 heavens and corresponding earths, suggesting a multi-layered reality the soul traverses.
Could you briefly list those stages? It sounds incredibly profound.
It is. The journey, as he outlined it, starts from the very beginning. 1. The divine command kun, be. 2. The primordial covenant, alastu bi rabbikum. Am I not your Lord? 3. The affirmation, kalu bala. Yes, you are. 4. The breathing of the Spirit, nafaktu fihi miruhi. 5. Receiving the knowledge of the names, azma kulaha. 6. The initial display or existence in Jannah, paradise. 7. The transition related to the forbidden tree incident. 8. Arrival in Barzakh, the intermediary realm, acquiring the jism-e misali. 9. And finally, donning the Mahdi libas, the material garment, in this world.
That's an incredible journey, spanning creation itself, covenants, knowledge, paradise, descent, all before we even arrive here.
It paints a picture of the soul having a vast history, immense experience stored within it, even if our conscious mind in this material garment doesn't readily access it.
So if the soul carries the memory of all these garments, all these zones, what does that mean for spiritual practice, for ruhaniyat?
This leads to Dr. Sahib's beautiful concluding point on this topic. He described spiritual realization, ruhaniyat, as essentially a journey towards childhood. Bachpan Kitab ke Safar.
A journey back to childhood. How so?
Meaning, it's a process of refreshing the inner memory, the soul's hafisa. It's about reconnecting with, remembering, accessing the awareness and knowledge gained in all those preceding zones and states of being. Spiritual growth isn't necessarily about acquiring brand new information from the outside. It's more about uncovering the vast wisdom and experience already latent within the soul from its long journey, remembering who you truly are, beyond this temporary material form.
Wow. So spirituality is memory retrieval, in a sense, reawakening the soul's history.
That's a powerful way to frame it, yes. A journey inwards and backwards to recover our deepest identity.
This whole discussion, From societal conditioning and the need for polishing the conscious mind to the power of certainty, the logic of submission, the spirit behind ritual, and finally, this vast journey of the soul. It really paints a comprehensive picture. It feels like Dr. Sahib laid out not just theory, but a practical pathway. Spiritual development hinges on internalizing truth, applying logic rigorously even within faith, and consciously exercising our will to choose certainty and alignment over doubt and distraction.
Absolutely. It's a call to active engagement with our own consciousness and our connection to the divine. And perhaps, building on Dr. Sahib's insights, a final thought for everyone listening. If certainty akin truly is the power that manifests reality, fueled by Allah's absolute competence, Qadirin Mutlaq, what is one small thing, maybe something that seems difficult or even impossible right now, that you could choose to focus your certainty on today? What if you directed your yaqeen entirely towards Allah's power to manifest that specific good outcome, trusting his competence above all apparent obstacles? It's a profound challenge to put that belief into practice.
That's a powerful takeaway, applying that certainty actively. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thank you very much to all the listeners for giving your time. We hope this discussion proves beneficial for you. If you found this valuable, kindly consider forwarding this video to your friends, especially those who might be asking about spirituality or Maqsood Azeemi. Your sharing helps platforms like YouTube automatically reach more people who might be seeking this kind of information. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and give it a like if you enjoyed the discussion. Lots of prayers for you too. Allah Hafiz to all.